Welcome to the Jamal podcast. My name is Sheva Balkany, and in this first episode, I want to share with you why I am doing this podcast and this Warrior series that we are starting now. Before October 7th, I really didn't have any connection to Israel past biblical love for the land. I had no connection or association with anything modern Israel represented. And that changed drastically after October 7th. And now I am doing many things connected to Israel. So I want to share the why, the how, and invite you to this Warrior series with me. When I was a young girl, I found some books on the Holocaust, memoirs specifically, and I soaked them in for years. These were accounts of individuals who survived, but for every individual survivor, there were thousands of slaughtered Jews who were tortured and murdered in the most horrific ways. And every single book that I finished, I would close and hold dear, and I would ask myself three questions. And these three questions were: if modern society knew what modern society was capable of, how would they have behaved differently? And even in my very young mind, it was quite conceivable for me to understand that a sophisticated Germany would not imagine the barbarism that they were capable of. So anti-Semitism might have been alive, but they would attribute it to, let's say, the pogroms or savagery that was from the Middle Ages, not sophisticated Germany. And my question as a little kid was, but if they knew how barbaric Germans or the world could be, what would they have done differently? My second question was, if the Jews had an army, if they had a way to protect themselves and fight for themselves, how would have history been different? And my third question was, how did the Jews in America exist while the gas chambers were running? That question I actually was able to ask my paternal grandmother, because she lived in America during World War II. And I did ask her, and her answer was laced with pain. But she told me that, Sheva, we didn't know. We really didn't know what was happening. We weren't sure. We knew bad things were happening, but we really had no idea of the extent. And so my third question changed to, if the Jews in America, or as a young child I thought that, but today it would be, if the Jews in the diaspora knew what was happening, how would it have been different? Or what would they have done differently? And I had these three questions that really weighed heavy on me. And at a certain point, I recognized that I would translate my efforts into creating a never again through informed voting in American elections. I believed at that time that voting for a safe economy, for a strong economy, for a safe America would be the way to ensure the safety of American Jews, because I was an American Jew. I am an American Jew. And I was a very proud American Jew. I am a very proud American Jew. And so I decided in my early teens that I would get super informed on American politics and vote according to, and every policy would be voted for a strong economy, which would protect the Jews. 20 years passed. And during that time, I traveled the world. I was up for any form of travel and any form of experience, with the exception that I was never, ever going to go to Poland. I never wanted to go to Poland. I was scared to go to Poland. And I just made that subconscious decision. And although I went to Germany and Belgium and France and Netherlands, I did not go to Poland. In September of this year, I got a really strong feeling that I needed to go to Poland. And I honored that feeling, and I decided that for second days of Sukkot, I would go to Israel, and on the way, I would stop in Poland. And so I did that, and on October 3rd, 2023, I landed in Warsaw. And so I decided that I would not sleep in Poland. I would just land in the morning and leave at night. And so I arrived in Warsaw at 6 a.m. and my flight was at about 10 p.m. And I just spent hours roaming the streets of Warsaw. It was exactly what I thought it would be. I was highly emotional, just cried the whole day, walking the streets, revisiting every single historical area, being quite disappointed at the representation of what actually occurred there, dredging up every memory of what I read in my youth. And I just spent the day crying. And a couple things that were really interesting to me. Firstly, these 3 questions that I had as a child 30 years before came up. And I kept on repeating them, not knowing that in just a few days they would actually be answered. And the second thing was that I grew up with a mother who really highlighted and underscored the importance of time and the energy of time. And as I was walking the streets of Warsaw, I could not connect to the idea that I waited 30 years to come to Poland, and I chose the holiday of Sukkot, which was the happiest time of the year, to be in the saddest place that I could imagine. And these 2 things just added to the misery of the day, and I had a quite miserable day. And boarded my flight to Israel, probably happier than ever. And when I came to Israel, I was very off, I felt very off. I attributed it to the fact that I was just in Warsaw and all of these feelings were reawakened within me. And on October 6th, I had a nightmare. And in the nightmare, I saw very visual scenes of war and terror. Anyway, I woke up on October 7th. I thought that it was because I was just in Warsaw. So I figured that my childhood nightmares from the readings that I've done were just presenting themselves because of me awakening them. But then my sister came into the room and she said, "You need to come to the bomb shelter. There's a war." And oddly enough, I felt very, very calm. I almost had this feeling of, we have an army and they will take care of it. Right when Shabbat was over, I turned on my phone and I saw the video of Naama Levy. If you saw it or you didn't see it, it's the video of her being taken away as a hostage. And it's recorded, it's in full light in front of people, and she is still dragged away, bloodied, dirty, and with so much pain that when I saw that, I actually vomited, and I realized that all my questions were answered. The world does know how barbaric modern society can be. We all know what is happening, and yet the world still will stand by and allow it to happen. And at that point, I knew that this was my chance to do my part in ensuring a never again. And so I made the decision that I would do anything within my power to support, love, and aid in this fight against evil. And so I have, in my own small way. I got back, I got a list from this elite unit, what they needed. I started collecting funds in order to send them what they needed right away, which they got. And when that was over, it took me about 2 weeks. I didn't know what else to do. So I decided to come to Israel. And I called my mother and I told her that I'm coming to Israel. And she said, "What are you going to do there?" And I said, "I will farm," because I knew that the farms needed help. And she said, "Okay, but before you go, just go to the Ohel, which is the gravesite of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and get a blessing, just pray for a blessing. And I said, okay, I will. I had the best of intentions, but it was like 2 nights before my flight, and I was in bed, and I realized with the start that I did not go to the gravesite, to the Ohel. And I felt badly because this was November, so this was still most people were in the unknown, and not many people were traveling to Israel, and I felt like I could use a blessing. And I turned on my phone. I was pretty much living on Instagram at that point for news and connection. And a video of the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, popped up on my phone. And he was giving $1 to a woman and saying, this is for your trip to Israel, and you should tell everybody that you're going. And when I heard that, I realized that this was more than me just needing to do something for Israel and for this war against evil. This was about me sharing what I want to do, or whatever it is that I'm going to do with the world to inspire or motivate others to do as well. And so I got on the flight to Israel, and I made a commitment that anything that would happen in Israel, or any opportunity that would come up for me in Israel, I would say yes to. That was all it took. That when I got here, again, I didn't know anyone, but very quickly I just started saying yes to opportunities that presented themselves, and I started doing many initiatives. I ended up starting a non-for-profit called Beleva Kavod, which is with heartandhonor.org, and we do events for Chayalim, and we do events for families that gave us the ultimate sacrifice. Yesterday we lost our 600th Chayal, and that is 600 families that gave us this ultimate sacrifice, and I wanted to do my part in giving them love, or whatever it is that I can do for them. And so that's where it's been going, and I'm continuing to do it, and you're welcome to visit the website and to look at the initiatives and contribute in any way that you'd like. In this journey of giving talks at different various organizations or shoals or communities, sharing what I think that you as an individual can do to support Israel. And again, this is supporting Israel, but this is really supporting a fight against evil. And it's starting with Israel, which is the boundary between the West and what Israel's fighting, which is radical evil that's trying to take over goodness. So wherever you are in the world, you can do something to get involved in this fight. And so really it's all about calls to action. It's really about you asking yourself, how am I going to stand up for humanity? How am I going to stand up for right? How am I going to stand up for good? And what can I do within my daily life? And there's a whole long list, and we're going to be talking through the Warrior series about so many different things that you can do. In this journey of mine, I was invited to attend a Druzy meeting. And at first I hesitated, like with most things, and I'm thinking, why? And, about to say no, and then remembering my commitment to yes. And so I said, okay, yes. And I went to this meeting, and the conversation was very much around how can the Druzy community, who are so pro-Israel and fight for Israel, how can we lift them up? And in my perspective, it was how can we illuminate who they are to the world and show them as a prime example that how Israel is multicultural and how the idea of an apartheid is utterly ridiculous. And at this meeting, a man stood up and he started talking about his son, Jamal. I got very, very emotional and felt that there was a connection here of some sort that I wanted to anchor into. When I left the meeting, I had a very strong feeling that I would like to perpetuate Jamal's fight for Israel with the initiatives that I was going to do. And that's what I'm doing. Even though the initiatives that I plan to do were happening already. They really felt right to be energized, empowered by Jamal. And since that point, I got to actually know who Jamal was, and everything that I felt in that initial meeting, it not only underscored it, it actually exceeded my idea of who he is and how, as a warrior, he defines who we can strive to be to better this world. And so therefore, I named this podcast in his honor. But in this warrior series, what I would like to do is I would like to introduce a character trait of a warrior, whether it be courage or love or passion or dedication or loyalty. And I would like to connect it to a Torah personality that embodied this character trait and shine the light on this Torah representative and see how and what we can learn from them. And then also bring a modern day hero who sacrificed their life for us in this war and show how they personified this very trait. And the way I'm going to be doing that is by interviewing a family member of theirs who can illustrate and highlight for us how they actually did this. And mostly, and most importantly, how we in our own lives can bring their humanity and their warrior qualities into our own life to continue to raise the world. So I really invite you to come on this journey with me, and thank you for listening, and thank you for being active in whatever way that you are. And I'm looking forward to celebrating many good times and much good news with everybody. Am Yisrael Chai.